You gotta figure it out first.
Carrying the live stream now. Got it.
Well, I felt I was sitting on the
Recording, but let me turn off the volume.
O'clock, and it's the regular meeting of the City of Westminster's Historic District Commission. Tonight we have Chris Amador, Krista McMasters as chair, and
Kevin Wagman.
as city staff, we have,
Mark Depot, the Director of Community Planning and Development.
thank you very much. Okay, so I will call us to order by reading the statement of authority. The Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from chapter 164, article 9A of the city code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code annotated land use article, division 1, single jurisdiction planning and zoning, title 8, historic preservation. And the qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building at 45 West Main Street. It's open to the public. All right, the first thing on our list is the approval of the minutes.
I make a motion, we accept the June 1st, 2022 minutes as written.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
So it seems to me by acclamation, these are accepted because you guys both first and second, any discussion, because it is on, it's recorded. So,
Okay, well, I made that motion because I saw we got agenda and the minutes were a part of it, so I read them over.
good, I'm gonna, okay, let's call for a vote, all in favor. Great, I sort of thought that might happen. Terrific, thank you very much, thank you to the minute takers with the city, okay. Next, we don't have any old business listed.
If I could, we just brief, Aaron Burrows, as you saw, has resigned. The discussion was to have him as the vice chair. Without him here, it's just something to think about as a group. I don't know if you want to wait till Josh gets back, but certainly we should bring that back up on the agenda for voting on the vice chair.
Definitely. So for next month, let's add that in as an item.
Can I ask the staff a question since we are on old business? Can you give any updates on 288 West Main Street, please?
Yes, I was actually going to comment on that as well for all business. We did have the pre-application meeting as part of the site development plan process. The first step is a pre-submission meeting with Carroll County. We did have that for the proposed 4-bedroom apartment building. So that's moving forward with the site plan process. I do expect to bring it to the HDC for review. And once we get further through the process and review. They did submit, there was a timber company that rehabs and also builds log cabins using old timbers from cabins that aren't, I don't know how they found him or how this happened. But they did reach out to him. They did go and look at the timbers and determine that none of them had value. They're all damaged or rotted. And the other element too is that the timber frame as it is was never intended to be for 2 stories. So they couldn't even, if they even tried to use it, they couldn't for the 2-story building that was there for back building code. So unfortunately, it does not look very good to save any timbers. What we did request is that if they were to save timbers, they should be reused in the building. We want a study of each of the timbers that are valuable or are capable. If they're going to use the timbers, if this company is going to use it, my understanding is they're looking at building a log cabin actually in Carroll County somewhere. And if that would be any good timbers that are there, they could repurpose them for this log cabin to try to make.
This is gonna be done as a private sales
as a private,
rather than a public good.
yeah.
So that's something to really think about, because the way it was it was initially approved as far as demo goes, was for a public good. It was gonna stay within a building so that it could remain in situ.
And that's what they're finding, it's not, the majority of the timbers, just, even if you cover them, it's for the structure and the support and everything else, it doesn't look like we're gonna have any timbers.
Are they gonna have another company? Because I hate to say this company has an inbuilt conflict of interest. Are they gonna have a preservation firm or somebody who does this kind of work, who will advise us along? I mean, I appreciate a company wants to make a buck, I do, but I would rather see one who doesn't have an inbuilt conflict of interest, is all.
We can reach out, what I did ask for is additional information, detail of the timbers that are there. In an attempt that if it was ever to be, try to be recreated, it could be in some fashion. So I reached out to Dean Cameron, and he's going to start looking into that aspect of it. Thing is, there's not much recourse, unfortunately, again, with the demo permit approved and without any standards or regulatory power, there's not much we can do. I think in the site plan process, certainly, I think we could try to address that again.
I guess I'm a little askance because Mr. Cameron's on record of saying it's non-purposable. So I would rather see someone who has the expertise and the non-conflict, who isn't being paid by the applicant.
I'm sorry,
You know what I mean?
Dean Cameron didn't make that comment. It was the timber company, that the people that use these timbers to repurpose them and use them, they did come out and site and look at the timbers. They're the ones who said they're just damaged beyond repair, and they looked at the structure aspect too. So it's that company that actually looked at it.
I thought I read somewhere where Mr. Cameron had stated that in the application in January, that's why they went for total demo. It's because he had already determined that it was, I'm pretty sure it's in his HSR. And then the state came along and said, no, it is rehabable. And so we have a conflict here where the state's saying it's possible. Mr. Cameron, before demo began, saying it was impossible. I'd like to have, that's why I'm asking for a company who actually does this for a living, so that we have something that's kind of already set the cards in motion for demo.
In my discussions with Dean, he was trying to repurpose as much as he could of the timbers that he felt might be able to be repurposed. Again, it's this third party that approached Mr. Knox.
Well, and everybody's looking for, a way to make a project, and I certainly understand that. I'm just saying repurposing is entirely different than rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Repurposing is not one of the treatment plans by the Secretary of Interior standards, which is what we usually go by. And rehabilitation is actually an in place strengthening treatment so that it can become something other than it was historically. But it stays in place, it's being kept in perpetuity, and it's reversible.
Again, I just don't have that ability to require that.
Sure.
We can request it, and that was the recommendation we provided, and the request we had of the applicant and the property owner.
Understood.
But at the end of the day, and hopefully as you're moving forward, what you're looking at now, in the future, we'll have some teeth, but right now we just don't.
Well, it just seems like he signed on the dotted line. Is he not held to that? Like
So-
when we gave him the conditional permit?
The demo permit, again, you provide a recommendation with demolition permit.
Right.
There's no conditional permit. Once he gets the demo permit from the county,
Oh, I see.
the fact that the whole thing isn't, he could have just demoed the entire thing
I see.
without me having much control of stopping that. He maintained what was there. Unfortunately, did not cover it, and I don't know what happened to covering that we requested that did go over it. But again, I just don't have much power. Maybe the site plan level, it goes a little bit of power because the planning commission can ask for conditions as part of the approval. So that area we might have some control.
I just wanted to kind of keep it in our minds in the future to make sure that our professional recommendations are something that tilt towards preservation in place and for public good. Rather than, I mean, any one of our structures can probably be at a point where they're more valuable in parts than they are all together. And that's really not a good place to be. And that could be an economic justification in the future. So we want to avoid that somehow.
That's where I think it gets that, get more of a regulatory power at the demo permit stage versus just a recommendation. Because even a recommendation, it's really recommended to approve it,
Mhm.
deny it, even if you recommend denial. As I said, I'm not sure I can deny it.
Yeah.
When it can actually follow through the process.
Yes, Kevin.
When he got a demolition permit, would there be demolition of the slave quarters?
No, and
So it's safe.
that's safe as part of the pre-submission hearing we had and the plans he has, that building's being maintained. That's not going away.
But that's for now, unless he comes up with another request.
Well,
Like,
again,
no building's actually safe.
but that's where the site plan, we can control that. It would be in violation of site plan if it gets approved and that's supposed to be maintained. If he does remove it, it would be in violation of site plan. That's where I do have.
But I'm thinking like next year, for
Yeah.
example, or next owner, you know, our current regulatory authority would not prohibit someone from coming through with a new demo request.
Other than them having to go back to plan, I make them go back to planning commission for that request because it would be part of an approved site plan at the planning commission.
Got it. Okay.
So again, that's where I think the planning commission can condition that the building must be maintained as part of that site plan approval, that secondary building. And potentially maybe use some timbers, I think that,
Mhm.
but I think we might have a chance at that point to at least get a little bit more if possible. My fear is that the main building's gonna be gone and we're not gonna get anything back from that.
Yeah, well, and what's especially sad is that, you know, it's a loss of a public asset that, you know, we'd love to safeguard, so. All right, well, thank you. Do you have any questions on the topic? No, okay. And I was gonna talk about our workshop progress during our commissioners and public comments, since we weren't really in this agenda. Is that an appropriate place for that?
Yeah, at either location, it was on a previous agenda, so you can bring it up at old business, or you can bring it up as part of historic district
Okay.
comments, so
Okay, well,
I'm gonna, we'll go the other way.
let me take a point of privilege and quickly look at the post-construction application for the tax credit 22-01. And we'll get that business done, and then we'll take the energy from the rest of the meeting and focus it towards our workshop findings.
Okay.
Okay, so, y'all have this? Mark, do you want to talk about, your recommendations?
Sure. So again, this is the post-construction application for historic rehabilitation property tax credits TC 2201 for 229 East Main Street. As you may recall, on February the 2nd, 2022, the commission reviewed TC 2201 pre-construction application and found that one, the proposed work is eligible under section 143(5)(b). Two, the Build Good Inc. estimate that included careful removal of all damaged bricks by hand, remove all cracked existing mortar by hand, repoint all mortar with type O era specific mortar, and replacement of era specific kiln dried sandstone bricks by hand raking method of $28,950 is acceptable. And three, the property is an eligible property. Furthermore, the commission granted preliminary approval of the historic tax credit certificate of eligibility for TC 2201 in the amount of up to $2,895, consistent with City Code Section 143(5)(b). So on June 6, 2022, the applicant submitted the post-construction application before you tonight, requesting the amount of $2,895 as previously approved by the Historic District Commission. Staff recommends that the commission review the proposed post-construction application and other documentation provided by the applicant for 229 East Main Street to determine whether, one, the completed work is eligible work and in accordance with the preliminary approval of the certificate of eligibility, and two, the requested amount of $2,895 is acceptable. And that's all I have. And unfortunately, Ed, we did mention when the meeting was happening. As you can see, it was submitted back in June 6th. So it was precedent they got in front of you, and just not sure why they're not here tonight.
I think that's fine. We can move on without them. We do have 3 motions here, and I'm wondering, are these now recommended motions to help the minutes
Just
get clear?
draft motions to help out. We talked about this last time. And just so we state exactly what you're approving and why you're approving it. It's just more beneficial. It's been guided by the city attorney, especially at BZA meetings. I figure why not carry that to this group as well.
Great. All right, so do I hear a motion from one of the other commissioners?
I'd say, why move that we accept their application and,
This one?
yes,
So your draft motion is, your motion is number 1,
yes,
okay?
Second.
We have a second. So Mark, we have a motion that the Historic District Commission, upon finding the completed work is eligible and in accordance with the preliminary approval of the certificate of eligibility and the required amount of $2,895 is acceptable. Approve the post-construction application for the historic rehabilitation product ready tax credit of TC 22-1 and forward the historic tax credit certificate of eligibility for TC 22-01 for the city of Westminster to the Department of Finance. Do we have any discussion? No? Nothing to consider? Great, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
I,
All right, so by consensus, we all agree. Do you want me to sign this copy? Is that good for you? Or do I need to come down?
It's a good question. I didn't know you had to sign something, so I will coordinate with you. This is a learning process for staff. It's the first one that myself or Andrea have ever worked on. So
Okay, yeah,
I guess it's the application itself you sign off on?
yeah, I approve this as submitted. The application on, and this is August 3rd, is the day we approve it. There's no conditions according to the motion. Sign at the bottom, 8/3/22. And we can have this at the end of the meeting or whenever convenient.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, great. So now we're gonna bounce back to our workshop work. And I did actually draft some stuff. And I sent it to the city last night. I smashed my hand, but I'm doing better. Smashed it in the latch at the shed. I did ask Christine to help us with, I think, what we can work on tonight, which is a list of what do we want to accomplish as far as improved preservation for the city. And I sat down and pulled from all our examples, the Lidditz example, and I reformatted it for Westminster, but that is web guidance to the process. So I pretty much just reformatted it for us. And then also I redid their application to match. And I thought, you know, this is a good application to work with. I called it alterations. They call it an application to the historic district, which I think is confusing because people would not be applying to the historic district. Also from the Chestertown examples, I pulled the entire section and redid it on demolition, partial demolition, and moving structures. And I made it look like Westminster, and I put that into 3 separate documents. Apparently, they did not get sent out to you guys today, but they will. But as I look at those documents, I started realizing we actually didn't do what Mark asked us to do, which is come up with ordinance language. And the more I started thinking about it, none of those examples had actual ordinance clips from their ordinance of what they say. So that's one issue, but moreover, I think it's more important at this stage to really work on these goals of what we want, because we should take it to Sarah, who is, what is her actual title, administrator?
City administrator.
City administrator. Well, of course, take it to Mark, but he's been part of all this. Take it to Sarah and to the mayor and make sure that what we want to do is what they want us to do. And then take it the next step to the city council and just kind of circulate it and see, is this what you think we should be doing? Because what I've been working on is all the how do we do it? By application, by guidance, and by adding information about demolition. And if that's not what they want us to do, then that's a big waste of effort to work through the how do we, what are the mechanics of it all? So we'll get those sent to you so you can look at them. But I think tonight the most important thing is what do we want to do? And I think that Christine's been working on this. Chris has got this down, but I want to rework it so that it looks like a list of what we think we want to do rather than notes, because notes, we know this is based on notes, but let's quickly sit down and pull out what we want to preserve and protect. And everybody's got a paper list of this, so that's great. So I think under the general discussion, I would strike McDaniels, because we don't want to have any comment on that. So I think that we would want to make sure that this is an understanding that we want to expand protection to all state listed properties. So the example is Roop's Mill, okay. And we could actually say with this expansion, we also want to expand tax credits, or is that too much at one time, Mark? Do you think that's too confusing?
No, again, I think taking these concepts forward to Sarah, I think we want a good direction as to which ones would be acceptable, which ones you should be working more on, which one would be more acceptable. So I think any of these anything you want to float or.
It's kind of swinging for the chandeliers.
Yeah.
So I think
Yes.
offer everything that we think we should have, and then they can strike it out.
Okay, all right. So let's see. Okay, an automatic addition to our list if property owners accept our tax credits. Possibility of short-term inclusion for oh yeah. We were talking about that maybe we could increase our amount as a good thing.
So you want the automatically added, the property to be added to the historic district, you want to keep that in there too?
I think we should. We want to protect the exterior of the structures. And yes, that does include outbuildings. I think we decided that.
Yes.
Yes, it does include outbuildings. Yeah, I think city buildings should be listed. I think that's something we should do. As an action item, I would make that action item number 5 though. It's a separate kind of topic. What about new structures? Okay, that would be a number 6 thought concept. Landscape. Is it on the historic register? Is it new? Can it be seen from a public vantage point? So that's a seventh thing. I think we were talking about, so I don't think there's really any landscapes necessarily on the National Register in our town. I think it's just a matter of, is the landscape sympathetic with the structures? If it's new, I think you can have sympathetic landscapes, you know? Believe it or not, I know of one landscape in town that is not sympathetic at all. And
Don't
so,
surprise me.
you know, it would, but the question is, do we want to exert some sort of, comment over that? Archaeology, yes. So that is within our, mandate, is to protect archaeological resources. We have really not done that at all. But I would think it would be a number 8 that we would want to at least offer up as something we could do. I mean, that's my profession.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're tearing it down, then somebody should be able to go in and take a.
Well, and it's not that uncommon in other parts of the state, so it's something we can at least explore. New construction, signs and murals, I think definitely that's something we want to protect as a viewscape. So that's number 9. Looking at protection of the historic district. Neglected properties, that's number 10. Okay. So as we're talking about demolition, I glossed over something. I mentioned that I had reworked the Chestertown demolition sections. But it hit me while I was working on it that actually we could put that language in our design standards.
Oh.
You know, we just approved those a few months ago before Andrew left. And that's a perfect thing to go in it. It's very detailed. I don't think it's in conflict with that advice sheet that I gave you earlier in May for putting it on the web. I think somebody will have to double check me to make sure it's not in conflict with our earlier advice. But I think that level of detail, and it's like 4 or 5 pages talking about demolition, would go into our design standards. Now, as Mark just pointed out to me, are those guidelines? Are they true standards or regulations? I think that's a good question that I think we need to talk about. Is this what we should be doing, is making those a requirement, not just a recommendation?
Also, maybe we could get advice from Maryland Historic Commission, what they recommend or what they believe should be done.
So let's get through with this. You're thinking the way I do. Let's get through with this list and then we're going to talk about next steps of what I think we could do. All right, so, okay, we mentioned the Chestertown demo. Okay. That part I don't think we need for what we want to do because we'll already have that section ready. Okay. So this is number 12, is the update the design guidelines. Okay, so education share, that's another aspirational goal that we need to improve. Better signage, so you know that you're stepping into the historic district. So these are aspirational goals 13 and 14. Incentives plaque program is number 15. Okay, with your guys' permission, I'm gonna rework this a little bit, if it's okay, and make it more like these are aspirational things that we want to say, this is what we're doing. And I will float it through the city to you guys this month, but I don't want to wait too long. I really want to get this before Mark and then up to Sarah and as we go, so that our aspirations are, we have a feedback from our city partners.
So, sorry. So these 15 items are a combination of guidelines we want to suggest and standards and things that we want to codify.
Right.
Right, yes, okay.
Right, so I think before we get too far to codification, we want to make sure what we suggest is acceptable, right?
Right.
So we want to know that this is what they think we should be doing and what our public expects us to do when we're protecting preservation here in town. So let's make sure we're all on page with what we're doing, and then we'll worry about how we do it. But I really think that that Mark had a really good question about our standards and guidelines. Are they just recommendations? They're required with our tax credits. Will we be requiring them now for any kind of alterations? And that's a really big what. Is this what we're being tasked with doing? Is this what they want us to do? And so it's a good question. I mean, we'll figure this out in the sauce as we step up through.
I think they're also looking to us to give them guidance.
Absolutely. Well, I think this is something, we should vote on this tonight. This is what we want to do. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna work it up a little bit, but I think I'm gonna ask you for a motion to support my continued working on our goals for historic preservation in Westminster. And I will promise to get these goals out to you guys before we start moving it up for further review and consideration. So can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we have our chair write up 15, 16 recommendations of goals for the historic commission and leave it open for maybe the council to have some other thoughts to add to it. But to me, it should be a joint venture. We can advise them, but it's only advice they can take or not take. That maybe they had 22 things they want to do. We can go back and talk about that and see how everybody feels about it. So it's more of a dialogue and emotion combined.
Exactly. So for a strategy, did we vote on this?
I can second Kevin's motion.
Thank you. I think that was a big long motion. Did you get? Did you get what you think?
We're taping it.
Okay.
We need to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. So here's my strategy, which might require a vote as well. I work on this month. I get feedback from you guys via email. I step it up to Mark. I get feedback from Mark. I step it up to Sarah. We get feedback from Sarah. If we can get that all done by the September meeting, I will be shocked and pleased. That's my horizon for thought. If we can get further, even better. You know, we'll just keep working kind of on an independent timeline of this group. But we'll keep working forward and keeping everybody in on the CCs. Does that sound good? And my thought process right now is that we all decide what we should be doing. And this is a great step. And then once we know what we're doing, we use the work that I submitted to Mark last night as how we're gonna do it. And as I mentioned earlier, how we're going to do better preservation in town would be a framework of further review and approval of alterations to historic structures in the historic district and those listed in the city by the state inventory. Okay. So that's our stated goal. Let's see how far we get. And Mark will send out the 3 documents, the appendix to our standards, the proposed or, draft, real early draft of an application for alterations and public guidance for what we mean by alterations. So, any questions? Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
So do we need to vote on this?
It's what are we even emotional, right? That's not-
You already had the motion, this
Yeah.
is discussion,
Okay,
and you had the vote, so.
all right, so that's my thought process. Okay. So let's ask our commissioners if they have anything to report, and we'll ask city staff if they have anything to report. This may be a pretty short meeting for us.
Nothing to report.
So just the compilation of the information that city staff will send to you. Anything from you, Kevin?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mark, have you got anything for us tonight?
There's not too much activity, businesses downtown, the old bank building used to be a hotel, 4-story, the yellow brick building. Interested in that, we have people that want to place offices in the first floor and the third and fourth floor. So now you'll start seeing activity at that site. Had interest in a brewery potentially coming downtown, so I'm in coordination with that. I'm trying to push them downtown if it's possible. And outside of that, not much else is happening.
Who is Doug? Do we get a new employee for the city?
Doug,
Doug is somebody. that-
Douglas, yeah, he's the
Housing guy,
no, city clerk, city clerk.
Oh, okay. He's on.
Douglas Farber, city clerk, great guy, great at his job. He's well known in the world of city clerks in the state and he does wonderful work. He's been very helpful for, especially my department now that we're down, and he's going to start working the minutes for us as well.
Okay.
Um,
I just saw his name on Sam and Andrea's emails, bounce back saying, call Douglas, and I thought, who is this guy? So, all right.
Great guy, very nice. If you have a chance, to meet him, I'd recommend that. Again, he's been very helpful.
So we haven't got anyone new in planning.
Had interviews, we have removed, or we will be removing the Main Street manager position and advertising for an economic development coordinator. More incumbency for the city, that Main Street management will fall under this individual as well. So that I think might be out right now.
So you're combining those again? Because it was combined and then you broke it up.
We separated them out, so I'm looking solely for a comprehensive planner and solely for an economic development coordinator, and again, the primary goal is economic development and Main Street management as well.
So is there interest in putting a brewery downtown?
No location yet, somebody just has reached out about potentially moving here with a brewery, and they were looking out in the industrial section. I'm trying to put
Gotta
it
keep it
here that,
discreet.
we have downtown spaces available as well.
Next to the
We'd
whiskey.
love to have you come down. Coffee, music, that's a large space, that could be a good location.
What's the difference between a brewery and a microbrewery? Or would this be actually a micro?
A microbrewery.
Okay,
A brewery, as you can imagine, is Busch and Miller Lite, huge brewery. Microbrewery is doing 3,000 to 5,000 gallons a year. And you typically have a tasting room associated with it.
So there's enough water in town for them to brew beer then.
We did find that the amount of water necessary is not nearly as much as we anticipate, because it's by year. So if you're only doing 3,500 gallons to 5,000 gallons, and it's usually about 5 to 6, 7 gallons per gallon of beer. When you multiply that divided by 365 days, it starts, that number per
Oh, that's interesting.
gallons per day isn't that significant. And that's how we look at it. We look at how many gallons used per day over the given year. Sometimes it spikes up, sometimes less, but again, we found that it's not nearly as much as the concern that we initially had.
well, it's not like you're rinsing the beer or anything once you get it in a
But
bag.
even cleaning the vats and everything else, but with the studies we've done, because we did it with the distillery. And we started looking into how much water usage, we reached out to breweries, distilleries, statewide, started getting water numbers, and again, when you calculate out how much they use over a given year per day,
Mhm.
it's not nearly as high as we had thought.
So is Johansson still considered a microbrewery?
He makes beer there, yeah, but it's a microbrewery slash restaurant. It's more of an accessory function of the restaurant because he has the restaurant component, it's the primary there.
I mean, there's a big, beautiful vat, but I don't know if they actually.
He still makes beer.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty, well, enough of that chat. So what, I guess getting to the bottom line is, have you decided, are we staying with who, you, or who are we staying with? Do you know yet?
For
As our city staff
me,
connection?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
so me
Okay.
and Andrea, it's both, you know, we kind of do everything right now, so we don't have the luxury of just having one person responsible for one thing.
All right, good. We just want to continue on knowing who we're supposed to talk to. So, all right, great. Is there anything else for the good of the group? Anything else? I will say I've heard from many people over the summer that they're watching out there. So thank you for paying attention to us. I actually had someone from DoorDash come in and say, "You're that Chris McMaster." I said, yes, and they stood in my doorway for some time. So, hey there, how are you? And thank you for watching, and stay interested in preservation for the city of Westminster. I move that we adjourn. What do you say?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's great.